Gavin Cumsky speaking on the pay-per-view yesterday about the Bundee Aki situation and who might start for Ireland over the course of the Six Nations. Alan Quinlan is with us. Might as well just start there briefly to pick up on it. The Irish management are very loyal to you if you've done stuff for them, and in some instances, and then in other instances they're like, well, just picking on form. So what do you think they're going to do with Bundee? They obviously need Bundee. They want him around. So will they reintegrate him into the Ireland squad and then hope that he makes some peace with Connacht?
You would imagine so. I think he hasn't played a lot of rugby, has he, in the last couple of months?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't decide. Are we delighted that he's fresh, coming into the Six Nations and ready to explode into it, or you're like, well, not quite sure about his form?
He's the kind of fellow you need playing matches. You know that if you put Bundee Aki out in a big game, even if he hasn't played in a while, that he's well capable of delivering. He's a phenomenal player. He's a big game player. He has the temperament to kind of be fired up and ready to do a job. But I suppose that little bit of sharpness and match fitness and stuff helps a lot. Robbie Henshaw hasn't played in ages. Would Andy Farrell put him straight back into a team? Robbie Henshaw, possibly. He's done that before. Leo Cullen's done it as well. So I'm not sure if I would think that the natural inclination here is Bundee Aki, Gary Ringrose in the centre next week, but there's kind of little rumours and whispers that it could be Stuart McCluskey.
Right. I was hoping you were going to say Osborne there, because we're all excited about the new shiny new thing. He's probably a bit away, Osborne, in fairness.
He's not that far away, I don't think. Right. I think he could be an option off the bench. I don't know, for the first game. But again, it's only speculation. Bundee Aki could start on Saturday, and I would have no issue with it. Irish fans would have no issue with it. But the only concern is he hasn't played a lot of game. Gavin Cumsky's talking there, and it's, again, you're hearing little whispers and rumours that there's some bit of a clash there. Andy Friend obviously hasn't clarified. They haven't picked him in a couple of weeks. Is it a disciplinary thing? Is it an attitude thing? We don't know. Again, it's speculation. You've got to be fair to the player here. But there's something has gone on there, and there's kind of rumours coming out of the camp that all is not right, and that's pretty obvious that they haven't picked him.
Yeah.
They're saying it's a form thing. If you've Bundee Aki in your squad and you're playing,
you get him into form. Yeah, especially that
pick him. You play
Newcastle
him.
Away game. You could easily put him in for that one.
Yeah. So it's not an ideal situation, and again, it's only speculation, rumours. Andy Friend says he won't be leaving, going anywhere else. He'll be playing with Connacht next year.
But Andy Friend is leaving, so he won't actually have that decision. Do you know? In many ways.
But if Bundee Aki wants to go to another province in Ireland, David Nucifora becomes involved there. You can't just say I'm moving to another province. But
you can't force a move if you want to, though.
Yeah, possibly. But we haven't heard. Again, there's something not right there. From a Connacht point of view, Connacht fans would love if it's resolved and it's put to bed, because he's a hero there, and he's been brilliant for them over the years. Of course, he's going to play a big part in the Six Nations, I think. But we'll wait and see what Andy Farrell does on Saturday. So,
in your head at the moment, McCluskey is probably in the most likely starter alongside Ringrose?
I don't know, but I've been asking, and you're hearing things through other journalists and stuff. The question is, how do we know that? Who said that? Because they've been in Portugal and in camp, and they haven't come out and said anything. And
we're due a squad update today, which will give us some news on
and look,
potential injuries. Ronan Kelleher.
Ronan Kelleher it's a shame if he's picked up an injury that'll ruin him out. We don't have full clarity on that either. Tom Stewart has been called up, deservedly so, because I think he's been brilliant for Ulster this year as a real prospect. He's still very young, but a great prospect as well. So that'd be a shame, because with the Dan Sheehan, Ronan Kelleher scenario, one of them starting, one coming off the bench, they're phenomenal players, and so that's not ideal for them. But there's going to be a few injuries throughout the Six Nations for each squad. Even though Ireland want to win the Six Nations, and it'd be brilliant if they did. 2019 has shown us that, and with Wales coming up on Saturday, with Warren Gatlin, the controversy going on in Welsh rugby at the moment, with the documentary that came out last week, the CEO having to resign over the weekend.
It's a shit
Not
show.
having to resign. He resigned.
Yeah.
I think ultimately he probably, the pressure that was coming on there, but there's a lot of stuff going on there that kind of, you think he'll get, number one, they'll get a bounce off Warren Gatland. Absolutely. All the Welsh fans, you see him online talking about it. There's excitement there that Gatland is going to come back and do something. The Ospreys have been going very well. They've qualified for round 16. So there's a little bit of energy there, and nothing better than beat Ireland on Saturday. And, the squad, the team he'll pick.
Clive Woodward is predicting a Welsh win to set the cat amongst the pigeons.
Could easily be a Welsh win. This. If you look at the form in November with Georgia beating them and what happened to them last year, Six Nations, you think they've been gone through a dreadful run. But he'll get a squad and a team on Saturday that will be really difficult for Ireland. So, and then it's a very hard place to play. The crowd get behind them there in the Principality Stadium. And Ireland haven't won a Six Nations game there since 2013. So. It's difficult. It's a difficult start, and this is really what I'm looking forward to about this Ireland team. How they can cope with the inevitable physicality, psychological challenges, the stress and pressure that the opposition are going to put on them. It's a really tough start. You think get the first one under the belt. If they get any sort of a win, and I kind of said the same thing 2 years ago, and it was that match where Peter O'Mahony got sent off. Went close in the end. The Billy Burns kick into the corner from the penalty where it went dead. There was a couple of opportunities there, but Wales didn't care and they went on and won that game. 2019, they're winning a Grand Slam. They're
flukiest one ever. I mean,
well,
every game had a weird thing, which were anyway. Like, look, they won it, we didn't, and that's what the record book shows. There's no asterisk.
Yeah, and Wales go to Scotland the week after, so. This is big pressure for them, and they will get an extra 10, 15, 20% out of themselves because of all the pressure they're under.
I thought it was interesting that Leinster went with the 6-2 split on the bench for the Racing game, which I hadn't seen from Leinster that often in the past. Is there any possibility that we start seeing this type of thing from an Ireland perspective, where we prepare for the inevitable slugfest that's going to happen against South Africa? We might look at that.
It depends.
Can you get Ryan Baird on the bench as a...
Yeah, he's the obvious one. I think if you have Jack Crowley, who can play centre, maybe play full back. So it depends on your sub back, if you like. If they can play in a number of positions, it gives you the opportunity. Conor Murray can play in a couple of positions, maybe. If it happened that you needed two backs on the field and you had early injuries there. It's always risky. Ryan Baird, you could put him on the wing. Absolutely, it pays. Josh van der Fleers has done it before. It depends. Against England and France, it's something that would it be the worst idea.
I'd like to see them experiment with it in this environment rather than for the first time ever deciding, okay, we need to do this against South Africa in a World Cup or whoever,
Yeah.
Just as, it was interesting that Leo Cullen did it. Now maybe it was because of availability of certain players and unavailability of others. If Henshaw had been around, suddenly they just take Osborne on the bench and away you go and everybody's happy. I don't know, but what are we looking for from an Ireland perspective in this Six Nations? We're favourites with the bookmakers. I don't know if that's just because there's been a weight of money for Ireland, but what do you want to see from the Ireland selectors to show that there's an evolution from last year when they played the best rugby that we've played in a long time?
It's going to be difficult to hit those highs again. Hopefully we saw a little bit of a dip in November and that they can reignite it a little bit again. When you think of, I think a lot of the stuff with any team that's successful and you're winning and you're coming off the back of a very successful period, even though they didn't win the Six Nations last year, France are going to have to deal with this as well. And we've always questioned France's mentality and drive, desire. And when you think of what Galtier has done and Ibanez and Sean Edwards,
all of those questions are gone, aren't they?
They are. And you think, because I think before last year they hadn't won a championship since 2010. you think of all the clubs, and someone said it to me recently, the amount of options that Galtee has to pick from every week with the top 14 and the league below as well. The amount of players that are there to be picked, and it was always going to be about organisation, getting the right players, attitude, fitness, all that kind of stuff. They've kind of got that stuff right. So they're you would imagine if they can kick on and deal with winning in a positive way and get better and keep that hunger and desire, that they'll be a force for many years if they get their house in order, basically, which they seem to have done.
Yeah.
For Ireland, I think psychologically this is, the scars of probably 2019 of coming off a brilliant year and then going, England finding chinks in the armour, physically overpowering Ireland. And that's always a concern, the physical side of and it's the same with Leinster. If you stop their flow, if you get in their faces, if you make it really physical, can you overpower them? And it's the case with Ireland. So can Wales, Scotland, Italy do that? Well, they can make it a complete dogfight and a complete mess. And Wales have done that before, with, I think back to Navidi and Tipuric in that game a couple of years ago back in Cardiff, where they won the Grand Slam and they, beat Ireland 25-7, I think it was. They made it just complete nightmare for Ireland. So they'll try and make it absolutely chaotic. For Ireland, it's dealing with that. And I think game plan wise, we're much better equipped, i.e., there's an ambition to the way they play, the skill set and the comfort in way they pass and deal with pressure. And going right back to New Zealand, the intense line speed, Ireland were still able to pick holes and find spaces, even off rucks and off mauls, little micro plays that they do that very well. So sometimes that can be difficult to defend, but ultimately, Ireland's scrum and line out, set piece stuff is going to be really important in the Six Nations. So I think they're better equipped this time. They'll know what's coming. And I think that will give them a little bit of edge and a bit of fight to counteract that. There's no guarantees,
Do you think that there's any selection issues to be decided, or has the team kind of rounded into essentially picking itself at the moment? Like, do we know the team now if everybody's fit?
Pretty much so, but I think somebody you look at the back row of if you were to pick a back row now, you're probably going Peter O'Mahony, Caelan Doris, Josh van der Fleer. You mentioned him a minute ago. Ryan Baird could be a real bolter here, someone with incredible athleticism.
And back in form as well.
Yeah, back in form, playing really well. Hard to stop, constantly coming up with moments, getting the ball in his hand. Jack Conan, obviously will have a big say in that, and he'll want to be...
Also started the game against Racing with Caelan Doris at 6, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if that's Leinster going to the Ireland selectors. Here, by the way, this guy was the Lions number 8. You need to pick him.
Yeah, he's still a brilliant player.
Yeah.
But by and large, the team is kind of picks itself. You think James Lowe, Hanson are probably the wingers, even though Jimmy O'Brien's form has been absolutely outstanding as well. Jamie Osborne could really have an impact in the Six Nations. But by and large, it does pick itself. And it's probably where you want to be. If they hit a bit of a brick wall in the Six Nations, you're saying, oh God.
What if they do a Liverpool on it and everybody loses form at the same time?
The vast majority of these players have gone on this kind of journey. But to be fair to Andy Farrell, since the cycle of the last Six Nations, he's capped a lot of players. I think there is more depth. And if you look at an Irish bench, which is really important, I think now for this group, it's maybe 10, 12 players outside of the starting team. Is there competition there? Is there energy, impact coming off the bench? And I think that's going to be really vital for him. But, look, ultimately, we don't want to see what happened in 2019, because that was worrying, I think, and they couldn't find a way out of it. And sometimes that can be difficult. So I think in their preparations, not just in the last few weeks, but in the last year or two, it'll be how do we deal with the power and the physicality. Go back to France last year in the Six Nations, when France got really physical and they scored a couple of power tries, if you like. Game was getting away from Ireland, and they had the ability in that second half to really attack, hold on to possession, and they caused France an awful lot of problems.
Yeah.
And brought the game right back into a really close contest in the end. And arguably, they could have got more out of the game, but they really, the reaction after New Zealand. So they might have a poor performance here. They might have a day where Wales could be outstanding next Saturday and find a bit of spark. I don't think that's the end of the world for Ireland, but I think if something like that happens, then I think they're good enough to react this time.
Is there any concern whatsoever about the fact that Tadhg Furlong has only played, half an hour off the bench against Ulster? Like I think he's tried every injury. He's had the calf, the hamstring, the ankle, all since the November internationals. Lack of game time, but I guess he's been wrapped in cotton wool as well for the Six Nations, Quinny.
Yeah, he's... I'm contradicting myself here a little bit with the Bundee Aki, although I'm not saying Bundee Aki has to play. There's certain players can, if their conditioning is right off the field... I have no issue with him. Tadhg Furlong is such a good rugby player. He's so much experience. You need matches. You need contact. You need to be, get that match sharpness up. But for someone like Tadhg Furlong is, because he probably, the way the modern game has gone, Shane, most of them only play 50, 55 minutes anyway now. So if we were to wrap him in cotton wool and Sexton in cotton wool until September, would you think... God, is that a real concern that they're not going to find form? Like, your biggest scenario with Furlong is he's scrummaging. He's not, obviously, if his conditioning is right, I think he'll know how to manage his body, stuff like that. So it's not a major concern for me that he wouldn't be playing too many games.
We were doing the Christmas decorations in my ma's house, and I found the Irish Times from January the 3rd, 2015. And the headline was "Battle of the Out Halves. Who'll replace Sexton?" That's 8 years ago.
I know, it's such a long time, isn't it? Really, and it is what it is. Really, I think there's, I think Jack Crowley is probably, thankfully, we've another person in the mix who
Frawley's due back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and Harry Byrne is still a very good player. He's still relatively young. Hasn't had a big run of games. Yeah. Big involvements week after week. I think Jack Crowley has got a lot of involvements this year, which has benefited him massively. He didn't get those involvements probably in the previous 2 years under Johan van Graan. He had certain moments, in certain games. I think back to a game he played in Cast about 2 years ago in the European Cup. A little bit jittery, a little bit standoffish, some moments in the game. But even the bad moments help you develop and grow as a player. And he's had a tough start to the season with Munster. They lost 3 away games.
Who's on the bench next week?
I'm leaning more towards starting Ross Byrne, I think.
Start Ross Byrne in the game?
No.
Sexton's going to start.
If Sexton didn't start, right, Sexton's going to start. Sorry. If Sexton wasn't there, I'd start Ross Byrne. I'd put Jack Crowley on the bench.
Right.
Just to give you that a little bit more of safer pair of hands, in the sense that Crowley has that bit more of a spark and that ability to do something off the cuff. He's still developing, getting experience along the way. But you're starting Sexton if he's available.
And who's on the bench?
And I don't know if he is available. Is he available?
We're all assuming he is.
We're assuming he's available.
He's done the press conferences. There's no bandage on the face anymore. He was training in a mask at one stage, we were told. And I didn't see any photographs of that, so it's hard to know. They keep everything. They keep their cards very close to their chest, but it did look like he was going to be available.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no. If that is the case, we haven't heard anything different,
okay.
And I think. If Johnny Sexton starts, I don't know. You're kind of blindsiding me a little bit with that one, because I haven't thought about it much. I probably. You think if Sexton plays, and there's two options here to think about this, and you've got to think a little bit. And is it unfair on Ross Byrne? If you want to if you're leading the game and you want to see out the game, is it Ross Byrne? If you're chasing the game, it's Jack Crowley a little bit.
Yeah.
So it depends what way
they expect to be leading the game.
Right. Okay.
They expect to win this game. Obviously you scenario plan for everything.
And Munster have made changes, and been pretty good at, backing the players that are there. It depends what way, Mike Catt in particular sees what Jack Crowley can do. He probably is that bit more ability to run with the ball and have that bit of a spark. Is there a mistake or two in Jack Crowley when you handle the ball so many times in a game? Probably. He's still learning. So I don't know. I don't know who sits on the bench. Ross Byrne has obviously put himself in the equation with playing really well.
Yeah.
Playing really well for Leinster.
And maybe most recent, it was a surprise.
So the answer to your question is I don't know. Either or, I think, and whichever selection happens, so they'll tell us why. And it's something in training, it's the way they're looking or viewing at the game. But I don't have a big opinion on either one of them should start there.
Okay. There's nothing else really up for grabs if everybody is fit as we think they are at this stage.
Not particularly, I don't think. I think it is a case of the bench. If Bundee Aki is not involved at the weekend, well, he's probably not in the 23, is he?
No, they have put him on the bench in the past.
Yeah, they
sometimes.
have, and they did in New Zealand, so...
you're not going a 6-2 split if you're putting Bundee on the bench, but...
No, you're not. You're picking your out half, scrum half, and...
If you're chasing the game and you want someone to come on and be able to have some kind of physical
and that
impact.
could dictate who they pick as on the bench for out half. So maybe Jack Crowley going on the bench gives him the option of a back three player. He can play in the back three as well.
Do the Netflix cameras have any impact? I saw Tadhg Furlong being asked about it. I know they've been in the Algarve, Ireland, for warm weather training since Thursday. He was kind of saying, I don't know how much intellectual property we'll give away in terms of team talks and that sort of thing, but it's definitely something the players will notice, cameras being there that mightn't have been there before in situations like team talks.
Well, if we unravel again, it'll be something we'll be talking about. That it was a distraction and you'll go to town on Jerry.
Oh, no.
Depends on the result.
Like the bus that time that Joe Schmidt blamed in Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
We've had this chat a few times. Ulster travelling to Sale. I'm telling you, as a player, it does make a difference. It shouldn't to the outside. It does.
You're saying the cameras would make a difference if you were in the dressing room?
No, but the bus being late to Murrayfield would drive me demented as a player. It would actually unsettle me. Some guys, they'd walk up.
Shouldn't the head coach be able to in a position to go, don't worry, Queenie, we've got this?
No, you can't go around to every player and go,
that's what he's there to use.
Calm, lads.
You can.
You've 20 minutes to get changed or half an hour to get changed and be out in the field and play an international. No.
If you're standing at the top of the bus going, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, well.
Do you know what I mean? There's like a...
It happens sometimes.
It affects different players differently.
Anyway, but the Netflix cameras, I don't think will make any difference. I think again,
they're with everybody though, right?
Yeah, it's true.
It's the way of the world. They're doing their own TV anyway, Shane, all the time, and their own stuff as a team. But it's a big week from now, I think, and it's a big mental kind of challenge for them. And if they started off well, they have a great chance because with England and France coming to Dublin, it sets it up for possible success.
This is our year. Yeah, so you're Grand Slam or bust.
Grand Slam, World Cup, you name it.
Let's go, baby.
Nice one.
Queenie,